Hi everyone, this is Marilyn Abrahamson, your brain health and neuroplasticity coach, and today I want to talk about something called executive function disorder, which is a very common cognitive symptom of concussion, but it's also a common problem with people that have ADD or ADHD, even in adulthood. An executive function disorder is going to make it very difficult for you to have peak mental performance at work or at school. That's because executive function is a term for the range of cognitive, emotional, and behavioral difficulties, which so often occur in adults with ADD and ADHD or after a concussion or traumatic brain injury, where there's injury to the prefrontal cortex or the frontal lobes of the brain. And speaking about concussions and TBI, if you think about how a lot of concussions happen, the front of the brain is so vulnerable in car accidents, in falls, all types of hits to the head. And even when the back of the head is hit, the brain's going to bounce forward and backwards inside the skull. And that's one of the things to remember about a concussion. It's not just where you hit your head on the outside that gets injured, because the brain's bouncing around in there, hitting inside surfaces of your skull in so many areas, depending on the speed and the direction of the injury. So let's talk more about these executive functions. What are they? What do they mean for your life and your job? And of course, if you're still in school, what does it mean for that? Your ability to learn and study, and how's it going to affect your performance? Now, executive function is an umbrella term for lots of skills that we use every day, skills that we need to navigate through life independently, like planning and organization, ability to self-monitor or self-regulate. In other words, our filter, problem solving, self-awareness, so we can control impulse behaviors, learning rules and abiding by them, social behaviors and social cues, decision-making, motivation, understanding what's appropriate behavior, and being able to inhibit inappropriate behavior. And so often adversely affected is concentration, focus, attention, taking in and processing new information. These are all our higher level skills, and most of us take them for granted because in the case of a concussion, before the concussion happened, unless you already had ADD and ADHD or ADHD, you were probably able to effortlessly perform these extremely complex tasks all the time, every day. So let's talk about why this happens. The frontal lobes, where all of these originate from, the frontal lobes are like the conductor of an orchestra in the brain. And something like ADD or ADHD or injury to the frontal lobes is most common, the cause of executive dysfunction. Now, occasionally damage to other areas of the brain, which are connected to the frontal lobes, can also impair executive functions because, it's all connected. And really most things that we do, do involve multiple areas of the brain. So, you don't have to have a concussion to have frontal lobe dysfunction. It can be caused by any kind of acquired brain injury like stroke or a tumor, encephalitis, meningitis, and as I mentioned before, ADD and ADHD. So if you plan to return to work or go back to school, and if you plan to be successful, feeling like you're able to put all of this behind you, then you're going to need executive functions to do that. If you want peak mental performance, you're going to need solid skills in this area because they're involved in even the most routine activities. Now, I've had clients go back to work after a concussion, feeling great, thinking their symptoms have resolved. Then they start doing the work that they've been doing for many years, and suddenly that work's not so easy anymore, and they may not even know what's happening or why. Then they may call me and complain of problems with, initiating or organizing or carrying out activities that they've done 1,000 times before. They're having trouble getting motivated. They're procrastinating, problems planning, carrying out sequences, struggling with problem solving, decision making. They're impulsive. They go out and they buy a hot tub or a sports car that they don't have the money for. You've got the idea. There are so many more, but those are the ones that may be affecting your life the most. And it's important to remember that not everybody with executive dysfunction experiences all of these problems. The effects can be very subtle, which only people who know you very well may notice, or the problems may be extreme. Either way, the effects on day-to-day life can be devastating, devastating to your job, your ability to learn if you're still in school, devastating socially. And it's often difficult for people to explain what's happening. They may not be aware that they're acting differently, that they're being antisocial. It can be misunderstood by others as depression or lack of motivation or selfishness or even aggression. So if this is happening to you, it's important to be aware that, you know, it may be ADD or ADHD, or it's the consequences of your concussion, but it's not your fault. But there are definitely things you can do about it. So here are some tips to get you through the day. If you're having trouble with planning, because this is the one I hear about the most, try using your smartphone as your personal assistant. Use the reminders or calendars. Set your reminders to come in at the opportune time so that you're always ready to do what you need to do when you need to do it. And have a zero tolerance policy for yourself for procrastination. Because if you can't, you know, absolutely do the task at the moment that the reminder alert comes in, just push that time ahead to a time where you think you'll be able to do it. Because if you procrastinate, you might forget to do it, and that's just going to defeat the purpose, right? Put people's birthdays in your calendar, put it on repeat for every year, and make sure to set an alert so that you either get an email or a text both on the day of the birthday, so you can wish them a happy birthday, or a couple of days before, so you have time to buy a card or a gift. You can use smartphone apps for everything from grocery lists to do lists. Make sure you're always prepared. And when you use a checklist, check everything off as you do it. So those are just a few things. So if executive function disorder is affecting your life, you can start by getting assessed by a clinical neuropsychologist. The results of that assessment will give you detailed information about your cognitive and emotional and behavioral changes, and can help with the planning of your rehab if it's determined that you need it. Now, cognitive rehabilitation, if you haven't already been down this road, is a great option and will, you know, depend on your specific needs and goals and whatever you're having problems with. But once your cognitive rehabilitation is over, the insurance has stopped reimbursing, the therapist tells you that there's nothing more that they can do for you, you go back to work or school only to realize that you still have so far to go before you can be successful again, you know, like you were before, which is where you want to be. And that's where I can help you. Now, I provide both one-to-one individual brain health and neuroplasticity coaching, or I have a signature group coaching program called Think Again, and it's designed specifically for adults who are returning to work after concussion, initially thinking that they're fine and ready to go, only to realize that there's still so much work to do. So if you go back to work, or if you're about to go back to work and you're feeling out of the loop, disorganized and scattered, brain foggy, unable to keep up with everything that's going on, you know, the list goes on, click the link above this video and let's talk about it. I've got over 3 decades of experience working with people to fire up their cognitive skills after concussion and brain injury so they can get back to work and get back to school and get back to their lives. So if you or someone you know needs help in getting back to feeling successful and confident at work and in their lives, click the link above and let's have a conversation about it. That's all for today, everybody. I hope you got some great, valuable information from this. Have a great day.